think when a new hire comes in, regardless what level of seniority or experience you are at a company, those fresh eyes are so appreciated by the company. You are coming in, you haven't seen things, you have a different view than everybody who's been working and in the weeds, and so it's ask the questions. There are no dumb questions. What are the processes here? What are the people? Because it really forces the company that has hired you to answer those questions.
Hello and welcome to Off the Books, where we surf the uncharted waters of accounting, finance, risk, and wherever else the waves take us. This episode is brought to you by Workiva, the one platform that brings together financial reporting, ESG, audit, and risk teams, and lets you know how to best eat your kids' Halloween candy without them noticing. I'm your intrepid host for the day, podcast provocateur, and recovering Sherry Coke addict, Mike Gravano. In this episode, we're wrapping up our mini-series from Workiva Amplify by talking with Alyssa Zucker, Workiva Senior Industry Principal Carbon, and Chelsea Hall, Workiva Industry Principal SEC Reporting. Steve and Catherine picked their brains about career advice, the do's and don'ts when starting a new job, and what folks in their respective fields are thinking about in the coming year. And now, to Catherine and Steve.
Could you each introduce yourselves? Chelsea, we'll start with you.
Yes, Chelsea Hall, Industry Principal with Workiva, focusing on SEC reporting, and that reporting umbrella just keeps expanding, and I've only been here 4 months. So SEC reporting, management reporting, global stat reporting, all the reporting.
Great. And Alyssa?
Alyssa Zucker, Senior Industry Principal in the Carbon Practice here at Workiva. I've been here 3 months. And in my role, I spent a lot of time interfacing with the industry that is involved in carbon accounting. So that's corporate reporters, practitioners, regulators, standard setters, basically anything related to emissions accounting and disclosure.
So tell us a little bit about starting a new job, making a big career shift. Do you have any words of advice for people who are in the same position?
I would say, so the biggest career shift for me was I actually used to be an in-house ESG and sustainability practitioner. And that is a very different role than the shift to being working in a technology and a software firm. And so for me, that transition was really exciting and meaningful in that I worked for a publicly traded company. We did a lot of ESG disclosure. It was investor driven, was one of the first companies in the real estate industry to put non-financial data into the 10K. And so thinking about all of that learned experience and expertise that was in-house at that company that had developed a relatively mature program and mature team. And, not that I'm sure I wasn't appreciated, but if I left, they were going to be just fine, right? Like they had really developed and evolved to be a leader in their space. And so thinking about bringing that expertise and experience to technology and how you can scale that and build that into a product that helps facilitate that very same thing for all the other corporate reporters that are trying to deal with this ever-growing sea of regulation and mandated disclosure, as well as their voluntary decarbonization and industry-leading plans. So that was my kind of big, meaningful shift here into Workiva. And I think there was an advice question in there of what would you advise?
Right.
And to me, it's just to go in with fresh and open eyes. I think when a new hire comes in, regardless what level of seniority or experience you are at a company, those fresh eyes are so appreciated by the company. You are coming in, you haven't seen things, you have a different view than everybody who's been working and in the weeds, and so it's ask the questions. There are no dumb questions. What are the processes here? What are the people? Because it really forces the company that has hired you to answer those questions. And a lot of times we'll be, oh, great, actually it's an area of improvement that we need to work on, or that's an ongoing work stream. And so I would just say to go in and don't be shy, don't be hesitant, don't be cagey, really ask questions because your insight and feedback is so appreciated by your colleagues, your boss, your broader team, and it's such a unique experience to get those fresh eyes. Like they're only fresh for so long before you're part of the institution.
Yes, use that unfair advantage while you have it.
That's right.
Yeah, Chelsea, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so just a little bit of background for me. I wasn't actively looking for a new job. I was in a controller position working for a global company. I had 130 employees reporting to me, but then the company I was working at, we got purchased by a new private equity firm, and around that same time, I learned about this opportunity at Workiva, and for me, it was a huge shift because I've gone from working in industry in a corporate controller role, and now I am part of a marketing team working as an industry principal, which was a position I didn't even know existed when this year started. So, and if you know anything about Workiva, we have a huge marketing team, and I'm joining a gigantic marketing team, so I'm in a field that I'm quite unfamiliar with, but luckily I had used the Workiva product at my previous position, and I think one of the things that really appealed to me when I learned about this position is, even though I'm part of like the SEC reporting platform, which is kind of a more mature platform than the ESG sustainability platform, I still see a lot of areas like coming from industry and seeing a lot of the hardships firsthand that the controller groups are going through, that accounting and finance employees are going through. And one of the things that appealed to me is working with the team to improve the solution and make it even better for existing customers, and hopefully convince new customers to come into the platform in the Workiva universe. So, and then any advice I have, I think, +1 to everything that Alyssa said, like you want to be a sponge and absorb everything. But then also I think the important thing to remember is when you are starting a new job is to get the lay of the land and don't come in as a know-it-all. And I think for me, it's always like finding that balance of you want to listen and make sure you understand everything that's going on. And if you have a new idea, chances are when you're new, somebody else has probably had that idea and thought of it. So like you might, get the lay of the land, don't come in too hot, and make sure you think about things before you start communicating them.
Once I hit my late 30s, I knew I had a serious decision to make. I could either get weirdly into World War II history, learn an absurd amount about wine, or start collecting vinyl records. Since I was never one for memorizing facts, and I think wine is best paired with, well, more wine, I started collecting albums. And yes, dear listener, the feel of a tactile piece of music is great in your hands. And yes, the sound really is warmer with all the pops and crackles underneath as Fiona Apple or Tom Petty warble through my apartment. But record collecting is complicated. First, there's choosing a categorization method. Do you go straight alphabetical or split by genre or year? And what if people you live with don't care about any system and like a monster they put Orville Peck's Pony right next to a Tribe Called Quest's low-end theory? Then there's tracking album prices. They can fluctuate more than the stock market, and you have to know where and when to buy that Carly Rae Jepsen you've been coveting. I wish there was a Workiva for vinyl, a unified platform to put all that vital financial reporting, ESG, and audit and risk info in one spot, and know what the most up-to-date facts and figures are. Dashboards to help you understand where your albums are by genre and year, and linked numbers and narrative to track a musician's career as they hop through various bands. Wouldn't that be great? Doesn't that sound lovely?
And again, obviously, Alyssa, your folks on carbon, Chelsea, your folks on financial reporting. What's next? What are people struggling with? Where do you think that sort of industry or that practice needs to be headed?
In terms of what folks are struggling with, topic du jour of probably every conversation I've had at Amplify thus far is regulatory readiness, specifically around CSRD. There's a lot of companies that are grappling with how to get ready for that. It is a major transition in how companies not just approach corporate reporting and integrated reporting, but actually operationalizing all of this data transfer and flow and real business operations. So I would say in terms of what I'm looking forward to is tranche 1 of CSRD reporting and what that looks like. Also in carbon, there's some other shifts underway, and this is a little bit more from the ESG or sustainability practitioner side, but the greenhouse gas protocol, which is our corporate standard of accounting, so think of your IFRS or your GAAP accounting standards, is undergoing major changes itself. All of the scope 1, 2, 3 standards are under revision right now. And so that's something that we obviously will have an eye on, because that's going to change, mechanically what companies are doing and the different accounting practices of all of this data work and calculations that they're putting together.
I had no idea. That's very interesting.
That's what you keep me around here for, Steve.
Well, they don't really do that very often with U.S. GAAP, at least not like major changes in U.S. GAAP. Chelsea, right? It's like a whole new world.
Yeah, actually, I feel like with FASB and U.S. GAAP standards, I was actually talking to a partner last night, and what's on the horizon with FASB, and I don't think there's any big huge standard changes out there. We're not after revenue lease, CECL, there haven't been any huge changes. We have disaggregated income statement expenses coming up, but I think that's going to depend on the maturity of the company and what their existing reporting's like, to really know how significant of an impact that's going to have. But I think kind of what a lot of people are keeping an eye on is the upcoming presidential election and what that's going to mean from a regulatory standpoint, especially with going back to ESG, SEC climate change disclosures. That's going to, I think, be very impacted by the outcome of the election. And even though I feel like a lot of the accounting finance employees are being pulled in to help the ESG sustainability teams build these controls and understand how to make sure that data is accurate, and that's coming at the same time. Another key focus area of mine and where I was impacted is just by the talent gap shortage. And so we're having this talent gap shortage, and I know it's probably been a topic of this podcast at the same time where we're having this increased regulation. And so I think every group is looking at how can I have automation and technology to help address the talent gap while at the same time address these increased regulatory reporting standards.
Sounds like we'll need to have you guys back on the show so you can give us updates on what you're hearing in the next several months.
So, 2 closing questions. We are going to surprise you with a question, which I know is making you both uncomfortable.
Our favorite.
That's right. Okay. Closing question number 1. This is your first time at Amplify. What do you wish you had known about Amplify before you got here?
I knew there was going to be swag, like a lot of swag. I wish I had known how much there was going to be, but rest assured, I did check a suitcase, which Steve has. I have learned how to do more carry-ons. My new job requires a lot of travel, but I packed I checked in my bag, which I'm thankful that I did because I didn't know there was going to be so much swag. Like I have an SEC Pro Group teddy bear, a book I'm taking home, some great treats, and so I wish I had known, but I lucked out by packing a big enough suitcase that I can get it all home with me.
Chelsea, you can dress it up however you want. I specifically told you how I feel about check bags. As long as when we're traveling together, you can manage a carry-on, that would be great.
Yep, and luckily I'm not traveling with Steve this week or next, and I'm feel so liberated being able to check a suitcase and pack as many pairs of shoes that I want.
Unbelievable. Alyssa, what do you wish you would have known before you got here?
I hope this isn't controversial, but I actually felt fairly well prepared for Amplify. I mean, being a complete newbie to Workiva and being, thrown in and navigating the deep sea of this entire ecosystem and all its solutions and, everything that's amazing. I probably don't know what I don't know about Amplify, but I felt like there was a lot of really great preparation. I think one thing that really surprised me upon being here was just the accessibility of dialogue that is available. I have had such incredible, direct, candid conversations with customers, with partners, with practitioners. I have also really enjoyed the combination of getting in a room and having ESG sustainability folks and audit and financial reporting folks in the same room to talk about how do you prepare for assurance of non-financial data, which is the whole challenge that we're trying to address right now. And these are folks that are coming from different disciplines, have different domain experts, different vernacular, different vocabulary, and yet need to work together to figure out how to do this for their companies. And so, I don't know, I guess it's a little bit of a riff on the answer here, but that's one thing that I've been very pleasantly surprised and, inspired by, frankly. It's just been incredible dialogue by the participants here.
My favorite part of Workiva.
That's right.
And this conference.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay, as quickly as you can, closing question number 2. What has surprised you? Same question, sort of, just different topic. What has surprised you the most in your new role as industry principals? Alyssa, you want to start?
I think Chelsea and I will probably both agree with this. It's that the role of an industry principal is something that exists, which is not a common role that you hear about at other companies. I suppose I would say it's really just been the degree of latitude that we have to interact with all different parts of the company. So we're talking to regulatory groups. We're talking to product groups that are actually refining and building the software. We're talking to CPX and product support teams. And so kind of the way that we get to be a comprehensive ear and participant in all those different dialogues and draw those conversations together and help move forward, go to market and product strategy is just an incredible exposure that I didn't know existed in this role because I didn't know this role existed.
Including lending a voice and talking on this podcast. It's amazing.
Right.
Chelsea, we'll give you the final word.
Yep, I agree. I feel like a lot of the questions I've got here is what does an industry principal do? And I think a lot of people are unfamiliar with this type of role, like you and I were 6 months ago. And I would add to just the breadth of the role, and like you said, everything we get to do, all the people we get to interact with, and a lot of cool people and the cool companies that we get to meet with, just getting to sit next to people that have so much say at their companies. And I think what really surprised me is like Workiva really does take that customer feedback so seriously, to the extent that we have a group that we're meeting with our customers, and our customers can impact the development of the platform. And I think that just speaks to, we really want to be innovative and make sure we're developing tools that are going to help our stakeholders.
Well, thanks for coming on the show and doing your first Off the Books episode here at Workiva Amplify.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you both.
Thank you again to Chelsea and Alyssa, and thank you, dear listener, for surfing along with us. I'm Mike Ravagno, and you heard from Catherine Tsai and Steve So. This has been Off the Books, presented by Workiva. Please subscribe, leave a review, and tell your buddies if you like the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a note in the comments, or feel free to drop us a line at offthebooks@workiva.com. So if so, we will see you on the next week.